Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to have a discussion about why I reread books, because if you've followed my channel for any length of time, you know that I am a massive rereader. I reread things constantly, and it is not unusual for half of the books that I read in a week to be rereads. And it is not unusual for me to reread the same book multiple times in a year. And I have absolutely zero issue with it. And a few people have been asking me why I reread. And I think the answer is, to me, I think it is simple, but maybe it's one of those deceptively simple things. I read a lot in a year. I'm over 500 books for the year. A good number of those have been rereads. I'd say at least a fifth to a quarter of them have probably been rereads. It's probably a big reason about why I read so many books in a year, because I do have a lot of rereads in there. I made a couple of notes, and I don't think this is going to be a really long video because, as I said, I don't think the answer is a complicated one for me. But some things to put at the start of this video. I have always reread books. I've always reread my favorite books. That's just something that I've done. Even when I wasn't a massive reader, I still reread my favorite books. I'm also the person who rewatches the same movies and the same TV shows constantly. Maybe it's the neurospicy part of my brain that likes rereads, but I've done it for a long time, and I would rather put on a movie or a TV show that I've watched before. To me, rewatching or rereading something is just what I do. And why do I do it? Number one thing, it's a comfort thing. If I love something, I want to read it again or watch it again. There is a joy in that for me. Like, it means I loved something, that I want to come back and spend more time with those characters or in that world or with that writing, because, you know, even just a writing style is a really comforting thing. I already know what happens, so it takes some of the stress off of it, and I'm more likely on a bad day to pick up a reread than a new book because I know exactly what I'm going to get. There's that predictability and that routine within it. I like to read what I like to read, so if I like something, I'm going to go back to it. I think there's always something that you pick up. And yes, 100% I'm a fast reader, and I've said this many times, I don't read every single word that's on a page. I just don't. And if I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm listening to it on a really fast speed because that's just the way that my brain works. Yeah, rereads allow me to pick up on things that maybe I missed the first time. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And something that people always put out to people who read so quickly is that, well, you're not reading everything, so you're missing stuff. Yeah, but if I read slowly, I would miss stuff as well because I would not be paying attention to the book. So just because I read fast and I might miss something the first time through doesn't mean that I'm never going to come back to it. If I really enjoy the book, I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to pick up on every little thing every time I reread the book. Another good reason for rereading is it's helpful if I've had a bad day and I don't want the stress of having something, either a book or an author that are new to me, and I don't know what I'm going to get from it, and I know I need something really positive or something that's just going to help my mood, because reading is a huge way that I sort of reset my brain if I've had a long day. But it's also really helpful if you don't know what to read. And I think sometimes that decision paralysis can really impact people, and that's sometimes how people get stuck in a reading slump, because you just can't make a decision. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with needing a break from reading or being in a reading slump. Like that's actually useful. But if it's something that you want to try and mitigate to a point, or you just want to have something so that you still feel satisfied, or you're satisfying your brain, really, that craving for reading, a reread is perfect for that, because you know what you're going to get. There's no stress in it. There's no unpredictability. There's no uncertainty. You're not worried about whether or not the book is going to be good or bad, or whether you're going to jive with the author's writing style or not. You already know. So it can be a really good way to either make a decision or to help yourself out of a reading slump. It's also a great opportunity to annotate. Like I will use page flags on my first read through. I typically find, though, my second read through, I will add more. There's more things that I've picked up on, or more things that have stuck with me and resonated over time, so that when I come back to it, I'm like, hang on, that's really important to me, so I'm going to mark it. But it's also really good if you want to physically annotate your book, or write in it or highlight it or whatever. The more times you read it, the more times you have that opportunity to come back to it. And I know every time I reread the rest of the story by Tal Bauer, I always add something different. There is an absolute joy in being able to go, oh, hang on, this part really resonates with me today. And I suppose that's the other thing. As I said, you'll always pick up on something new, but sometimes just the time that you read it means you get something different out of the book. And sure, you might have loved it the first time, but you might have been feeling one particular way, and the second time you're in a completely different mood, so you read it and you just see it in a completely different light. And that's also fun. So yeah, that's mostly why I reread. Like I said, it's not going to be a long discussion video because I don't think it's something that needs to be discussed. Like, if you don't like to reread, if you just want to constantly read new things and more books and different authors, that's totally fine. That's valid as well. I read enough through a year that having a high number of rereads doesn't affect the fact that I'm trying new things at the same time. That's just me personally. But I do think rereads can be really good. If reading is just not going the way that you want it to at the moment, or if you've just read a stack of books or a sequence of books that just haven't spoken to you and you just need to reset yourself and remember why you love reading, like sometimes that's good as well. I reread because I enjoy it. I reread it because I enjoy the books that I would like to read again and again and again. And yes, I will read the Kate Daniels series 3 or 4 times in a year. Now that I've got the graphic audios and now that I am actually able to listen to audiobooks while I'm doing other things. Like I had to train myself how to do that because that initially was not how my brain worked, right? So I had to train myself how to do that. I can now just put on my favorite books in the background. And the best thing about that is if I'm doing something that's a little bit more complex where my attention is divided more than it would usually be with an audiobook, I already know the story. So if I miss something here or there, it's okay because I know what's coming. That's also comforting. And if I'm doing something that I really don't want to do, I would rather do it while listening to something that I really love. That's just something that makes that more worthwhile and more enjoyable for me. And the other one, I forgot to write this one down, but it's totally relevant today, is I'll reread if I'm going to be talking about the book significantly because I want to have a deeper understanding of it. And for me, that comes from multiple readings. It's just the way it is. That's why I reread. So hopefully this answered some questions for people or it was interesting. I don't know if it is for everyone, but I don't know if everyone's interested in the topic, but that's why I do it. As I've said before, everyone's reading preferences, everyone's reading taste, the way that people choose to engage in reading is totally their own journey. And you have to do what works for you. And this works for me. In the comments, I'd love to know, are you a rereader or are you not a rereader? And if you do reread, what sort of things call you back to a book? If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, leave the, it's like the U-turn emoji. I'll leave it in the description below because we're coming back to things. We're rereading things. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, everyone.